Greetings, everyone. This is Cook. I used to call myself Chef, but I haven't had chef training. I decided to share my chili invention when I was helping my daughter manage her body's diabetes. So we made a pan chicken chili. Today I'm using turkey, but you could use any. I'm using deli, a sliced turkey that I further sliced in little squares, but you can use ground turkey, ground chicken, ground beef, ground veggie meat, whatever, wherever you are in life, whatever floats your boat, whatever your needs are. So I have everything ready, everything measured out, so I like to keep my videos on the shorter side. Most of them have been like 5 minutes or something. This one will be a little bit longer, but this doesn't take long. And with this recipe, you can use fresh ingredients or canned. I'm using a mix. Most of them are canned. And they even say that canned tomatoes have more lycopene. I did happen to have a couple of fresh tomatoes, so part of it is fresh tomatoes and part of it is canned. So I'm going to turn this so you can see the pan. You won't be able to see inside of it, unfortunately, but afterwards I can take my phone off the tripod and you can see it. Okay, so I have onions. The recipe calls for, and I'll put the recipe later in the bottom in the chat. But the recipe, and this is the recipe I invented. So originally it called for half a cup of onions, but I have at least a cup, maybe a little more. And I have, it calls for a large bell pepper, and I have a large yellow bell pepper cut up in here. And also I'm going to put my seasonings in, mix it in with so that the flavors will blend even more. Well, I didn't keep the spoon out to see if I can get the rest of it out. There we go. All right. Usually I just dump the seasonings in, and of course I use whatever I have. Like today I did not have the exact thing, so I'm using what I have. Then next I'm going to add the turkey to get it kind of warmed up, and I don't know if it might brown a little bit. The onions did. Doesn't have to happen. Guess I should have shown you, maybe you saw it when I dumped them out, how I cut them up in these little squares since I don't have ground turkey. And this particular deli turkey that I got has all natural ingredients. Yes, it's processed, but it has no nitrates, and even the carrageenan is from seaweed. So it's one of the healthier ones. The ground turkey would probably be healthier. Also, I'm sauteing these in extra virgin olive oil. You use avocado oil. And I a lot of times use medium heat. This is kind of between medium and medium high. So this is on. All right, so next I'm going to, the recipe calls for 2 cups of broth. Usually I use vegetable, but all I had is beef and chicken broth. So I'm using beef broth since one of the boys always kind of fusses when I don't use ground beef in the chili, but yet he's the one that eats the most of it. So He likes it anyway. Um, and basically this shouldn't need salt because just about everything is salted except the fresh tomatoes. So I'm just going to dump everything else in. I use a half a tablespoon to a tablespoon of pure maple syrup. I'm just going to dump it. I'm kind of a dump cook, but the recipe, oops, I'd have gotten a little bit more, hopefully not too much, because I just want a tad. I guess I should have measured it out. And then I'm going to squeeze half a lemon, juice of half a lemon. Some people use apple cider vinegar. I do not care for the taste of vinegar, so I use lemon in the place of vinegar for just about everything that calls for vinegar. I do use apple cider vinegar gummies. I can tolerate those, but not the vinegar itself. And then I'm going to dump in the fresh tomatoes that I chopped up. And then the recipe calls for 8 ounces of tomato sauce. I only have this 15-ounce can, so I'll just use half of it and then use the other half for something else. Oh, it's a little bit more. Okay. And then I have a can of petite diced tomatoes, and normally I use 2 cans of them, but since I had fresh tomatoes, I used that. And then I either use pinto beans or black beans. You could use any kind of beans, but I only had black beans, so it's gonna be black beans today, and I drained them. If you used less broth, you could just leave the juice in. And then I'm going to use a can of organic whole kernel corn. The beans are organic as well. You don't have to have organic. I just prefer to eat organic when I can. Not so many pesticides and so forth. Okay, let's see. Make sure I'm not forgetting anything. And then basically all you have to do is heat this up, or let it simmer long enough to let the flavors blend together. Let me double check the recipe. My recipe is written out by hand, so I'm hoping I have a typed up one that I can copy and share in the chat. If not, I'll take a picture of this. Let's make sure I put everything in. Okay, and I didn't tell you what the mix of seasonings were that I used, but I used 2 teaspoons of chili powder. Now you can use 1 for a milder flavor, but for me, even though my throat doesn't like a lot of spice, I can handle the 2 teaspoons, maybe even more. And it calls for 2 teaspoons of dried oregano or Italian seasoning. I used Italian seasoning today. It calls for a teaspoon of ground cumin, or to taste. It calls for 1 tablespoon of minced garlic or garlic powder, and I used the powder. I also used onion powder in addition to the onions. I love onions. And onions and garlic are high in quercetin and allicin, which are very healthy, and especially when they're not overcooked or in their raw state. Now the recipe, it calls for 1 jalapeno minced. Remove the seeds and ribs, but it's optional, and I don't use that because that bothers my throat. so I think I told you everything else. Oh, and then when we serve it, we usually put grated cheese on top. It can be vegan cheese, it can be any kind of cheese. The only grated cheese I have right now is Parmesan, so that's probably what we'll use tonight. My housemates are traveling home from a trip, so thought I would have this ready for them. So let me show you what this looks like. It's very colorful. I'll have to take my phone off. All right. Hopefully you can see it. And it probably looks a little darker than it actually is because I think my shadow was in it, plus it's on the stove. We don't have a real bright lighting in here. Anyhow, thank you for watching. Any questions you might have, just put in the comments below, and I will get back with you. I'm usually notified. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and bon appetit.